My name's Ricky. I'm one of the founders of Mooch. I'm from Miami, Florida. So I'm Cuban by proxy, but Costa Rican by descent. Um, Grew up there. My Spanglish is pretty amazing. I can order groceries and do haircuts in Spanish and English. Um, and Miami was a great place to really immerse yourself in the Hispanic culture because just you have so much variety there of different type of Hispanic people, and it's everything. And so I got to bring that perspective to the Bay Area where I started Mooch.
Amazing. I love that you just decided to just go for it and take the leap. And that's definitely something we're going to talk about in a little bit of what made you actually just go full throttle for it. So everyone's here for the underlying question of how do we get the C-suite to represent the current diversity pool within tech? Like I said, hopefully we'll get that question answered for you. But for right now, we're just going to start with the question of, Ricky, can you tell us, the community, about your initial experience when you worked at a former tech giant? How did that look like?
Yeah, so you learn a lot when you're there, but there's a very big learning curve and an opportunity gap there. So from my experience, I was on the Facebook newsfeed ads team. So basically, I worked on products that you guys all hate for seeing the ads in your feed on Instagram and newsfeed. And I was in an organization of about 40 people working on this product, and I was only one of two Hispanics. And the experience there, you become so data driven, and it's kind of like product boot camp because those companies are so polished and they don't really make any product or UI changes without testing it on their millions of users. And so what you really learn is what features make your products better and what don't. And I always tell people this. I walked in there, or when I walked out of Facebook, I was 10 times better of an engineer than when I entered. You learn so much because everything is data driven. Everything is fully measured. For example, I once couldn't ship a feature because it reduced story likes by 0.1%. And so like, nope, can't change that. And so you really learn like how to measure and launch features. And that makes the startup that I'm starting now so great to work on because I already know how to move numbers for the key goals of our business. And so the jump from big tech to now startup has been great because I have those skills now versus kind of wandering in the dark of building a product. So you really learn product skills. That's like the big thing that you learn.
And how has your adventure been within your startup alone? I know that's a really big thing to do, right? Especially during the pandemic. I feel like that was a huge thing where people were like laid off in general, so they didn't know what to do. So they decided to do their own startups. But what made you just launch into this? And how is it going so far?
So it's what made me decide to launch in it is I've just generally been an optimistic person. I've been very lucky. I've had a very lucky life. And so the only reason between me and other people working in those tech giants that didn't want to jump is I believe that I could. It's really comes down to that. So when the reason I started Mooch is I was trying to budget for myself and my wife, and I realized like even though I'm college educated, I'm working at this big tech company with all these smart people, I still don't know anything about money and personal finance. Why? Why is that? And then quickly realized, okay, this is a bigger problem that other people could use help on too. And so I decided to jump in and do it. I had the optimism to do it, and just the feedback from people who I told the app about that it would work. So one of the big things I did is I paid a designer like a couple $100, and I had her design up some wireframes for what I thought the app would look like. And then I would just meet people at Starbucks, strangers, and show them the wireframe for our app because I knew technically I could pull it off. It's just would people want it? And from there, people just kept saying how great this could be and how, I would use it. And I learned what features to launch first and what was important. And that kind of led to my conviction that, okay, this is going to work. People are going to use this thing. And that led me to have the conviction to jump.
Amazing. I love that you're so optimistic and believing yourself. I feel like that's something I don't want to say lacking within our community because a lot of us are confident. We just don't know how to showcase it at the end of the day. And I appreciate
Definitely
you.
confident.
What
Definitely.
happened?
I said we're definitely confident people. Yeah.
Yeah, we just get shy, we don't know how to showcase it and just take the leap. And I have a question also in regards to your allyship. Like, how did the allies help you to the stage of where you're at in your startup or even just launching your startup? I think that's a really, really super important topic to hit is just uh, not taking advantage of our allies, but, accepting their help.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely play the Hispanic founder card when it's in my best interest. Like if I'm talking to a VC or whatever, definitely gonna play it. I can, so I do. Um, and I think like it's really just comes down to like we have certain disadvantages and we have certain advantages. And if it's a game and it's a zero-sum game, then you got to play your cards the best that you can. And so the help that I got was just strictly through my network, especially in Miami. Of That's how I got the initial interviews of people to try out my app, and I got introductions to certain investors. And part of it also the Facebook name helped on my resume. But to get to that Facebook step, there's like 10 other steps to get there. Um, and yeah, so I don't really feel too I don't feel like we shouldn't play those cards when we have the chance to, because there's so many other disadvantages that why try to not use that when you have it in your deck of cards.
That's fair. That's fair. So, two important lessons so far, folks. It is soak in the information that you can in your current role, use it to your advantage for your future role, and play the Hispanic founder card as often as possible. Awesome. My next question is going to be pretty much just getting down to the nitty gritty. So, how do you think we transform the leadership pool and include more diverse faces in C-suite roles?
So I think the main thing is it is the pressure applied through the culture and society to make the leadership numbers more transparent. Because with organizations like you guys and just generally the social pressure around it, at the end of the day, the only thing that really moves businesses to do things is if it hurts their bottom line. And that's just how capitalism works, unfortunately. And so if us as consumers and can bring in the first batch of Latino executives, then they can bring in more. And over time, that's how we get more of this power back and get more of us in positions of leadership. And so I think that's the first thing is like we have to continue things like this, like Techeria. We have to continue helping each other out through these organizations. And then as we get more in the door or in the room, we bring others with us. And so when Techeria reached out to me, I thought if we can inspire just one more person to jump and start a company, or we can get that's one other person like on the battlefield with us. And so I think it's like we got to bring people up, and we got to keep putting pressures on our leaders to that are currently not Hispanic to bring that diversity into the leadership room.
Ooh, I'm gonna do some poetry snaps right now because that was fire. I love that. No, I think it's super true, and I think unfortunately in this society that we've lived in, we've kind of been pointed in the direction of like, do what you have to do, make it on your own, dream big. But I don't know. I feel like in general, the Latinx community is a strong community that thrives off building communities, building villages, and continuously being pathfinders. And I love the points that you made in your response. So yeah, the next question I'm going to ask you is, can you touch on your hiring process at Mooch? How do you ensure that there's diversity within your hiring process?
Yeah. So this was obviously very important to me when we started. So what we do is for every role, we have the list of applicants, and our rule is we can't make a hiring offer until we've interviewed at least 3 diversity candidates. So the rule is, let's say you meet an amazing person, first interview, and normally you'd make a hiring offer to them. You can't do that until you've had at least 3 diversity interviews. So it could be 2 women and an Hispanic man, or it could be whatever the category, however you want to define that category. But if you push it further out, you can't really do it on the hiring side, because then you're being, unfair. You're not just hiring the best person. At the end of the day, it's a business. You have to hire the best person. But the right place to optimize is in the interview level, because interviews cost you 30 minutes. And if you're a believer that, cream rises to the top, and you're only getting, 3 out of 10 people that you interview are diverse in some way, then hopefully you're going to get a strong 3. And so that's the point where, okay, you've definitely done enough that you've seen some good candidates on the diverse side, and then you can decide to make a hire. And so that's how we do it. We also do a cultural interview. So depending on the role, but we always do a cultural interview where 2 moochers besides myself and my co-founder have to be in the room and kind of to maintain that culture. And so it depends on the role, but we'll always have some of our moochers interview the potential candidate as well.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that, everyone's always like, you have on the website, like, we're open equality, and it's always listed on the bottom of the website. But I think definitely holding companies accountable and saying, yeah, like, okay, that's fine that we apply. Applications are easy, but you're right. It is optimizing within the interviewing session. It's super important to get that through to any company, actually. And I think that's a great system that you have in place right now. Beyond hiring. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No.
And I was going to add to that there just generally is a bottleneck problem. Like, there's just not enough applicants. So when I was at Facebook, I was on the as like a volunteer extra credit thing. I was on the diversity recruiting team, where we would go to historically Black colleges and Hispanic serving institutions and just try to get them ready for the Facebook interview. And the fact of the matter is, there's just not enough applicants that can actually pass the interview, just from a purely technical perspective, because there's less opportunity at the beginning, right? If you're competing against Stanford kid that got a computer in their hand at age 5 and like took coding classes, versus maybe you took your first CS class in sophomore year, there's a true bottleneck problem. And so at least if you do, and as a company, we can't really change the macro situation. So you have to do your best to like move the needle further down in the micro. And for us, that's the interview step.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And honestly, I never really thought of that up until you just mentioned it, because everything just seems like a regular kind of thing. I don't even know what word. There's a word that I want to use that is just not coming out, but I hope you understand what I mean. We do have a question from Menasha Reyes. How did you know when you were ready to hire a team, and what roles were you looking to add at the start of your growth?
Yeah. So it became painfully obvious that I needed a co-founder because I didn't know anything about banking and finance. I could code and build products, but I definitely couldn't run a spreadsheet. And so this was during COVID. And so it just became painfully obvious, like I needed that person. And so that was the co-founder side. Then on the like actually hiring someone and paying them, well, first things first, you need money. Like if you have enough, but I'm assuming this question means you have money. The like Silicon Valley advice there is don't hire until you're absolutely sure you need it, because one bad hire can tank you. So if you make a hire and then that hire just crushes your culture, it's a good chunk of your just general runway to bring on someone. So you want to hire slow and fire fast. And so hire slow means be damn sure that you need this role and you can't do it anymore because the time lost on other work is being dropped. And so that's kind of the way you want to look at it. at least for that first few hires.
What's the fire fast part? I'm curious. Sorry.
The fire fast part is like if somebody is not up to scruff, they're a culture killer, or they're not meeting the job description, then you need to have some conviction that, look, this isn't going to work, and give them the opportunity to improve. But you need to, like, fire fast doesn't mean fire in 2 weeks because they're doing a bad job. Fire fast means, okay, it's been a month, this person isn't ramped up yet. Let's figure out a plan to improve them, and if they don't reach it by this date, then we're going to let them go. And we've had to fire people that just didn't deliver, didn't do what was needed of them, and that's okay. But that's just part of the process. So fire fast means, like, have a plan to have someone improve, or you need to get rid of them. It's just the way it works.
That's fair. Beyond hiring, how is your talent retained? What internally has been crafted to create a sense of belonging and inclusivity for your employees?
Yeah. So being a startup founder, not enough time is usually dedicated to culture. And culture is actually much higher ROI than just getting one more feature out. Because if you optimize culture, then instead of, you getting that extra feature out or handling that fire, you have a squadron of excellent people that move in unison and get more done. And so what we've done is, it's an iterative process, but there's a few things we've done on the culture side. So I'll give you some I'll give you some practical and then some tactical. So on the practical side, your culture needs to be aligned with what kind of business you're going to run and why the culture is aligned with your success metrics. So for us, culture is about partnership. We think that the current banking system is broken and that people don't feel like their banks are their allies. They just feel like their banks rip them off. And so, okay, how are we going to make people believe that we're their partner and just not another one of their banks or another one of their finance tools? And so we built the partnership word into our culture. So some examples. The first thing is, if you use the word user in our Slack, it autocorrects you to partner. If you use the word user in our code base, the app won't compile, it'll crash. So imagine telling a developer, you can't use the word user. Like, that's so standard. And what that does is that builds a culture story. And then what I find is, I'll be in meetings with some Mooch employees, and one user or one person will say the word user and someone else will correct them to say partner. And that's how you know that the culture is working, is that it's moving beyond you. Or they'll self-correct themselves to say partner. And when you have a culture story, that's something that people can get behind, because they're with you at a startup for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. You can't just pay them more and get them to work more. They need to believe in you. And so whatever you're building, you as a founder, you have to be able to sell the story. You got to sell the story to your team. You got to sell the story to your investors. And you got to sell the story to your customers. And so for us, that partnership thing was one of our 5 kind of values that we push, but that's the one that I think is the best story. And so I'll use that for this example.
That was fire, Ricky. You're just on fire. I'm loving your answers so far. And it's yeah, I mean, so sorry, I did have a question line of business turn out, but I forgot it. So we're just gonna move on to the next question.
That's cool.
Does anyone in the chat want to submit a question right now? Like, feel free, like, I'll read them now, or we can hold off to the end, but don't be shy, ask as many questions as you want. For right now, we're going to move on to the conversation of what your top execs have in common right now. And yeah, just curious to know how you're aligned with them, how everyone's aligned within your company.
Yeah, so as a leader, your job is to put your team in the role that they do best. Like, the metaphor I like to use a lot is like you're a sports coach, and you don't want, although this might be nice, you don't want 5 LeBron Jameses. You want one LeBron James, one guy that can shoot, one tall guy, one guy that can play defense. And so what you want to do is put each person in their best position. And so that's kind of the first thing. So if you have that in place, then the best execs really are better at what they do than you are at that thing. And you trust their opinion more than you trust your own. So for example, my co-founder, Kevin, who's like now a TikTok influencers person, we just passed 300K on TikTok and it's all with him. If he says we should say this in our marketing or we should be pushing our messaging this way, I'm going to buy it. And the strong execs are the ones that push back against me if I have because I don't know everything, and honestly, neither do they, but they know more than I do. And so that's the first thing, is they're not just yes people. They're good at getting their opinions across. But the second part is that they do it in a way that's logical and human. They're not just sticking to their guns and they can't really story tell their side. Because humans, the way we operate is through stories. That's how we learn. That's why we like TV shows and can watch Netflix for hours, right? Because we like stories. And so every single conversation is a story. Like if we change this feature, then moochers, our partners, they're going to do this thing. And that's how you tell the story. Or if we're talking to the finance person, our CFO, well, if we raise this much money, this is what we can do. If we raise this much money, this is what we can do. And if they have the actual, technical skills and then the ability to sell their argument, then that's really how you get strength. Because you got to bring people with you. You can't just be good at what you do. You got to be good at bringing people with you. Because execs are essentially micro leaders. They're leaders of their section. And so they got to be able to bring people with them and have the strong argument in the first place.
Thank you for that answer. Yeah, I funny enough, when I was researching on my own about how to have more Latinx leadership in the pipeline, I did come across an article about CMOs using storytelling to diversify their workplace. So it's funny that you mentioned storytelling. I'll share that article with you another time, or to anyone that's interested, I can share it. But yeah, no, thank you for that. And another question we have is, what accounts for the fact that women have much higher representation in lower potential C-suite roles? What's your opinion on
that? When you say lower potential, what does that mean?
I don't want to say, it's more like
more women are CMOs than CFOs, or
So it's been felt that maybe more women are in positions that deal more with people as opposed to technical. So okay. What's your opinion kind of based off of that, or why do you think it's that way?
Well, okay, so I think and I feel like women can probably speak to this better than I can because I don't have that experience. But if you look at the pipeline, there's really two ways for women to get in those leadership roles. One would be they get promoted into it, right? And the other is they start at a young company in a startup role, and then they are in that role when the company starts. I feel like those are the two main paths. Like the founder of Bumble, right? She raised money and now she's the CEO of a big company, and that's one way to get people in. And the other would be somebody who got promoted into that role, like Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook, right? She got hired in from Google, and then she became COO at Facebook. The problem with pipeline one is the same problem we talked about earlier. You need people to bring you in and diversity, and that's coming. The problem with pipeline two is just women raise less money than men, because that's also another way they're treated unfairly, right? So there's entire firms that VC firms that they talk about, oh yeah, we want diversity and inclusion in our portfolio. Look at our portfolio. And then their portfolio party, there's one woman that they actually raise money from. And so women are facing a double uphill battle because they also can't raise money and start their own thing as easily as men can. So you also get that bottleneck problem from the bottom up. And then they have, 80 cents on the dollar in pay. Childcare is a problem, so they can't get it promoted as often, right? Those stop the promotion path. And then the startup path is blocked by there's not enough fundraising opportunities for women. So it's shitty, but that's what I think is happening.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that response. And it's true. Should companies disclose diversity in greater
Kim said basically patriarchy. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Should companies disclose diversity in greater detail by level or function?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a pretty straight up answer.
Because it's gonna separate the bullshitters from the real ones, and the bullshitters that just change their logo to women's rights logos or pride logos from the ones that are actually doing it, and they can get called out much easily, and that'll hurt their bottom line. Right? That's the way it works. You hurt their bottom line, then they have to act. And so, yeah, I think if we push for that, then that brings push to shove, and it forces. I'll never forget. I was at Facebook, and they had this. It was during. It was right after the George Floyd stuff, and they had like a Black History Day, and they had a bunch of Black creators and human right and like civil rights activists. And I'll never forget, like it was Mark Zuckerberg. It was like on a Zoom call like this. It was Mark Zuckerberg and one of these rights activists, and the woman was like, "How many Black people do you have at Facebook right now?" And like talking to this billionaire, super powerful guy, and like I guarantee nobody talks to Mark Zuckerberg like that in his boardroom, right? But she did, and that call out, even though he was working on like a Black Pride Day at Facebook, it still put him on the spot. And so we need to put those leaders on the spot, because at the end of the day, we, the consumers, and we Hispanics, we have a lot of power because there's so many of us we got to keep that pressure on them. And so I even think like Mooch could be doing better here. Everybody could be doing better here. And if we put that pressure on all companies to disclose that, then it's going to provide more pressure and therefore force them to implement policies that move those numbers.
Yeah, I agree. The application of pressure is so real. And honestly, it kind of leads into my next question, which you kind of answered. And I think it was you answered for a general basis, but I'm curious to know, how do you advise people on influencing change if they are not in leadership positions already? I know you kind of answered that, but do you have any other tips or advice? Okay.
So in my opinion, it comes from rapport with your management. So I've been, my story is a little wonky because I've never actually had a white boss. I worked in Miami, so I had like Hispanic bosses, and then I worked for other bosses, but Asian bosses, but I never actually had a white boss. But the story I'll tell for this is when I was at Facebook, and I was, 2 of 40 Hispanic people on the team, and the other guy was pretty quiet. I'd be like the token Hispanic in the team meeting, and so comments like, "Oh yeah, we'll get burritos next time, Ricky," or things like that, right? But because I had a really good rapport with my manager, I could play the Hispanic card and be like, "Hey man, like this shit's not cool." And because I had that good rapport with him, I was able to actually impact change. I could have had an angry reaction too, and I did internally, but I knew that wasn't going to have a good outcome for me in my career of just like angrily reacting in that situation, which we all, I'm sure, experience on some level. Like we have to like suppress ourselves and fit in. And so, but then once that happened, the manager like addressed it with the team privately, and then moved on from there, and more opportunities came my way because now, yeah, I was a token Hispanic, so you better consider me for promotion next time, right? And so if we can play that card there too, and build allies in leadership above you, and then use that to climb the ladder, right? And so that's one way you can do it. I don't think it really works from the, just calling them out on it immediately in a public setting and kind of the social shame route, because all that does is make them feel awkward, and it's wrong. They shouldn't. But if you're outcome oriented, then in my opinion, and this might be controversial, but that's the route I took. Some others say we should call out that shit like right away. I agree. But that wasn't going to work in that situation.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I guess it just matters it comes to how intense you are versus like how relaxed you are. Like personally, I'm a hothead, so I try my best not to be
Yeah.
intense or whatever. But sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it
Yeah,
is hard.
and we shouldn't stand for that stuff. Like, definitely, but like when as the oppressed, we know like when we have to, when we can be hot-headed, and what's, you have to like play the situation. So
Yeah, I could totally agree with that. Yeah, so that concludes all of my questions that I have, and I'm really, really appreciative of you answering every single one to the best of your ability and really
yeah.
knocking these out of the park. They've been amazing answers. I'm going to go over to the chat right now and
Okay.
just read a couple of the questions there. So Minasha Reyes asked, curious to know how big Mooch currently is.
So we're 12 people. Um, we just broke 300,000 on TikTok. We've raised $1.5 million, and there's about 7,000 people on the platform right now.
Wow, that's amazing. 7,001 because I'm on there. So also from Edwin, how do you know if a new hire / executive is going to be a good fit for the culture?
I think there's you got to have a good bullshit meter. So like some people will pass the culture interview, and then when you talk to them one-on-one, they use the word user still, or you can kind of tell they're not bought in. Um, I think that's really it, right? Like when you talk to them about the future of your company, are they excited, or are they just trying to hype you up, right? As their boss. And like and so for the person we had to let go, it was definitely the latter. It's just like, yeah, whatever you want, man, that sounds great. But it wasn't like, and you build rapport with the people you work with, obviously, and so each relationship is different. But basically, if you're not seeing like, it's not like a sliding scale of like no enthusiasm, some enthusiasm, high enthusiasm. At a startup, everybody's got to be high enthusiasm. If they're not in the high enthusiasm camp, it's hard as hell to do a startup. If you're not in the high enthusiasm camp, you really shouldn't be there. So you can, it's really binary. They're either super into it or they're not. And that's how you can tell.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Could you share your VC funding story and how did you find and prepare for the right VC to work with?
Okay, so the short version of the story is my co-founder started doing TikToks about budgeting. The TikTok page blew up. That got us into the UC Berkeley blockchain accelerator, and that got us in front of our investors from the demo day. So in terms of choosing investors, it's a long process. It's basically like dating, at least for your lead investor. Maybe the follow-on investors it's more about. So typically, just, I don't want to sound condescending, but just like the structure is, you have a lead investor and then you have like some follow-ons, and maybe the lead investor takes 30% of the round and then the rest take the rest of the round. But really you end up mostly working with the lead investor. Maybe you meet with other investors once a half. So it's really about the lead investor. So you want to have, and you're going to be meeting with the lead investor all the way up to weekly. So it's very much like dating. You have like your initial session with them, the pitch, they come back, they want to invest. Then you say, maybe let's talk, let's go to dinner, let's have coffee. And then you make sure you have a good rapport with them. And our lead investor, I'm at their office now, actually, B Partners. They meet with us weekly. We go out to drinks together. We have a really good relationship. I feel like they back me. And I think the difference is I feel okay telling them bad news because they're still believers in me, in us. And I think that's the filter you're looking for, is like they're bought in enough with the big picture that you'd feel comfortable sharing bad news. That you're not just constantly selling them, but that they're a partner in the business journey. I think that's the difference.
Awesome. Manisha, I hope that answered your question. Sorry, I'm just scrolling along. Clay said, I'm doing technical work, but I noticed that people who project manage seem to be looked at as leadership even more than I do. Other than sales, what path can technical people take to make the most money they can possibly make? Another way of asking is, what role do you value the most? Money, what is hard to find now? Clay, did I say your question right? Sorry. I feel like I just skimmed through it,
Perfectly.
but
You even said it in my voice.
okay. Okay, I wanted to make sure I was reading that properly.
Okay, so yeah, I guess value. So value goes from engineering, data science, product, and operations. That's basically the order. So engineers get paid the most. Then data scientists is it's basically a supply and demand problem. There's not enough data scientists, not enough engineers. Then it's the product visionary people. So those are the ones that can look at an app and say, we need to move this over here, we need to add this feature, and we're going to move the numbers. Those are the people that work with the data scientists and engineers to answer product questions and validate product features. And then you have the actual operators. Those are people that, actually operate the business. So maybe that's technical sales, maybe that's product marketing. But in terms of like a cash tier, that's kind of the scale. Engineer, data science, product manager, product designer, operator. It's kind of the tier.
Awesome. Thanks for the layout. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I work in tech, but some of these positions are really intense for me to understand. But if that answered your question, I hope it did. Luis Reyes, he asked, how did you deal with the racist situation again? And I think that was mainly you staying level-headed and confronting, like talking to your leaders about it. Am I correct? Correct me if I was wrong.
Yeah. And it's just like a lot of like little comments here or there.
Microaggressions.
Yeah. And so, it was, I talked to my manager about it. And I think the other piece of advice is like, I threatened to talk to his manager about it. And so, because I'm not gonna let that shit slide. I'm just gonna try to solve it the way I want to solve it. And then, okay, it got resolved. Cool.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Victor asked, what was the alternative word for users or to users that you were mentioning before?
Partners.
Thank you. And this is a big one. When interviewing for a startup, how do you show genuine enthusiasm? Like, how do you show that you're super into it? But also be realistic when asked about your intended time at the startup. No one grows up saying they want to work for someone's startup. This question is referring to your bullshit meter when interviewing job seekers.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think it's very similar to a real job interview, or a big tech company interview. You've researched the company. I would say you've done like at least 10 minutes of research, and you can tell me something about my own company. So it could be as simple as if you're like in a product role, it could be I downloaded the app, I made an account, and this is my feedback. And that could take 10 minutes. If you're in a design role, it could be you downloaded the app and you had some feedback on the designs, or have you guys considered XYZ thing? Just showing something that they like are excited about it enough that they want to make better. That's it. It doesn't have to be, I think it's unrealistic to expect because I always hated that question when job interviewing of like, why do you want to work here? It's like, because you're willing to pay me, basically, right? When you're first looking. So I don't really expect people to, be heads over heels in love with Mooch without ever talking to us. But just having, some, if you're actually, it's kind of organic. If you're actually interested in the company, you're going to have looked into it and have done something. And it's just in the conversation, working it in that the things you've looked into and your thoughts, that's going to be enough to, at least for me, to say, okay, this person's actually excited about this interview. This isn't one of the 10 they took because they need a job right now. But that could also be the case. But that doesn't mean that we're not that top 1 of 10.
That's totally fair. Victor also, I guess, added how do you show enthusiasm for an operations role? I mean, I guess the same way, right?
Yeah, I mean, so Bryn, the one who set up this opportunity with us, I think she shows that really well. And the way that she does it is that she's always willing to just tackle whatever problem is blocking the business. So she's obviously a big believer in us. We're a big believer in her. But the thing that she does is like you can throw something at her, and her enthusiasm for the problem doesn't diminish. If it's we need to send emails to these vendors or we need to reach out to these partners, she jumps on support. She jumps on like opportunities. She even reaches out to investors. So like you can do it. That's totally possible. Maybe in the interview it's harder because you don't know the operations, but you can definitely do it when you're in.
Oh, amazing. I love the shout out to Bryn. Shout out to Bryn. We love you, Bryn. Yeah, Bryn was a main reason why this is able to happen today. And I adore her already, and I've only met with her a few times, and she is nothing but a fresh breath of air. Right? Did I say that right? I can't even talk. Okay. But yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's also important to stress like enthusiasm, not just for startups, but just in general. Like you're right. Like if you want the role, you're going to want the role. And I think it's all a matter of like setting up your own boundaries too. Like you don't want to apply. If you don't like gov tech, then don't apply to gov tech, right? Or if you don't like
I don't think everybody has that optionality. It's just for the one you're most excited about, put in that little bit of extra effort to stand out in the crowd, whatever that means. Because yeah, I agree. Like if you're a software engineer and you've been coding for 3 years, you have the pick of the litter. But if you're a junior PM and you're just trying to get a role and get some experience, then you need to stand out amongst the other bunch of PMs that you're competing against. So it's a balance there, but just stand out is the answer.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to turn your mic on, ask away, turn your camera. We do have a few more minutes, but if there aren't any other questions, this is the end of the session. So I'll leave it open for 5 more minutes. Ricky, thank you so much for partaking today. I truly, truly appreciate it and love having you part of the community already. Same to you, Bryn. Thank you so much. But yeah, the floor is open to the community. And if you have any last words, like please feel free to mention it.
Yeah. So if anybody, I feel like I'm in a decent enough place that I can help. So if anybody here or from the Techeria community wants advice, guidance, introductions, just say the word and I'll help out. So if anyone wants to take me up on a coffee chat or just I want to add you on LinkedIn, or there's somebody I want to meet, or I'm thinking about learning to code, or whatever it is, I'm here to help. So just reach out and I'll help however I can.
Thank you so much for that. I love the mentorship path, right? I think that's something maybe we talked about beforehand too, but like accepting mentors, whoever's willing to teach, let them teach you. It doesn't matter if they're white, Asian, Native American, whatever, right? Accepting mentorship in any way you can is super important. I see a couple mics off, so I don't know if you guys have questions or if I'm just gonna stop talking for a second.
Hey, Richard, thank you so much for coming on and all the answers. This is really good stuff, especially if you are trying to, get into that upper layer, higher positions or start something on by yourself, One thing I want to ask you is that what do you recommend doing for somebody that is in a position like a technical role and is trying to get noticed for management positions? Making that transition can be very difficult. And I know you didn't exactly do it in exactly that way, like a promotion role, but if you have anything that you will recommend for somebody trying to do that?
Yeah. So the first piece of advice is to, first off, try to work at a place that actually promotes technical talent and management. At the end of the day, you're not going to change. If it's a big enough company, you're not going to change the whole orientation that they're going to make an exception. But let's assume that that's true or that's doable. If that's true and doable, what you need to do is start taking on leadership type work across the technical team. So I think step one is you definitely need to be leading projects and distributing work amongst other technical people. But then step two is you can do things like organize the team socials, mentor younger engineers, find the people skills that you can apply outside of the scope of your work to already show as a proof point that you are good at supporting people. Whatever you can do in that case, it can be team socials, it can be mentorship, it can be taking on more code review, it can be hosting, leadership sessions. Just if you present yourself as a leader, then you can be a leader. So that's what I would say.
All right, thank you.
I might add on to that also. If you end up being an SME on a particular topic, you can do talks, you can do demonstrations, and you can definitely practice your speaking skills and taking questions and facilitating things. If there's something formal in the org where they do tech talks amongst the org where people can like show and tell, make sure you participate in those.
That's awesome advice. I was about to put fire emojis, but my little emoji screen froze. Awesome. If anyone has any more questions, like please feel free to ask. We are coming to time though, so yeah.
Richard, just one other, I guess, question on this. I mean, I don't know if you had this idea and you wanted to go found something, or if you felt like you kind of hit a ceiling and the best way forward was to just start something yourself. I think that's kind of when you're in mid management or you're kind of in that middle role, you're not necessarily just trying to break into management. It's a little bit of a different beast and a different conversation trying to manage up. So I guess kind of what precipitated that idea to just kind of go on your own versus still trying to be in a larger established org and try to go that route?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I empathize with this question because I have a lot of friends who are kind of now in that middle tier stage that it's just kind of, it's comfortable, it's nice, but they don't feel the fulfillment. So at the end of the day, it's a jump. Like there is no I know for sure moment. You get more and more data, and you get to the point where you're ready to jump off the cliff. That's what there's Steve Harvey, the comedian. He has this saying that's like, at some point you just got to jump without the parachute and hope that it's going to form on the way down. You can't ever get to the point that you are ready, and maybe you decide to never jump, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's kind of a YOLO moment. You're just like, all right, I'm convinced enough. I think it'll work out, and then you jump, and maybe you fall flat on your face. But you at the end of the day, you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to jump, and you jump. And for me, jumping was, I had the good feedback from the Starbucks interviews. I knew I could pull it off technically. And I knew I was going to jump. And so I saved up for 3 months or 6 months of time. And then I jumped. And if we didn't get that pre-seed funding, I would have been out of money in 3 months. But I jumped and we got it. And sometimes if you jump, it puts more urgency on you because you've essentially burned the bridge back. And that puts more fire on you to deliver. But I know a lot of people who are super smart and could probably pull it off, but the comfort of where they are feels too risky to lose. Humans were loss averse. And I'm not saying either that it's heroic to jump. I could totally fail still. Like we could run out of money and just fail. So I'm not saying that this is the right path. It's just if you're looking for the moment of certainty, it never comes.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at the nuance between like, I guess I want to make sure I establish that the conversation isn't just like, the path to building this Latino leadership pipeline is that you have to go jump and start something yourself.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Right. I want to like make sure to say, like, because for some people, like, they don't want to do that, right? They want to like figure out how they can actually work within the org. And I guess I'm kind of wondering, maybe by your experience, like, if trying to work within the system was not, that you didn't see it like working well enough for you, that you had to make the jump, or if the jump was just solely because that's part of who you are and in your DNA to
it's part of who I am. And okay. I got promoted 3 times in 4 years at Facebook, so I was climbing. So I didn't feel like that was the reason. Okay. Yeah, I didn't see a ceiling.
Cool. Yeah, and that was the potential problem, that I was like, if there was a ceiling that you saw at that mid-level, or that thing, or if that was still a possibility for you. Okay, cool.
Thanks, Louis, for your question. Appreciate it as always. So I'm actually just going to give everybody back 4 minutes of their amazing Thursday afternoon. If there's any other questions, like, please feel free to email me or send me a message in Slack, and I can relay the message to Richard, or you can just add him on LinkedIn, as he said. Don't be shy, ask as many questions as you like. And yeah, this session will be recorded. It will be posted on our YouTube channel, and it will be, you guys should see my notebook right now. It's absolutely insane from all the notes I just took from this session. But I promise you all, I will condense it to like the top 5 takeaways. And I'll also be sharing that in our Slack channels and most likely our social media. So yeah.